guys, welcome back to my channel. If you're new, hello, my name's Namuela and this is my mini-series on mental health and how it affects university and my experience with it. So the main aim of this video is to highlight and talk about how mental health does and can affect people at university. Where we are now, it's sad to say, but we are facing a mental health crisis at university and everyone laughs about it, but no one draws on how bad and negative the fact that we are facing a mental health crisis is. There's never really been a time where I've ever felt like I can openly talk about it. And I think that's one of the main reasons why I want to do this series and do this video, because I know there's people out there who, like me, might be thinking or might have been thinking, am I the only one going through with this? Am I the only one who feels this? I think the main thing that I found growing up with mental health issues was how it seemed quite trendy enough that I didn't feel comfortable talking about the serious issues I faced. You know, you might hear people going around and throwing away these terms in commonplace environments and kind of normalizing or lowering the significance of these things in society and in conversation. And I think one of the main things that I would definitely say is, yes, it might be the case that it seems trendy or it seems cool to have depression or anxiety. What I wanted to highlight is understanding the difference between feeling anxious or these feelings of nervousness and having a nervous anxiety disorder, you know, whether it's generalized anxiety disorder or social anxiety disorder. Anxiety isn't just this closed box that might be applicable to social situations. It's a very, very wide mental health illness because it covers a lot more than people think and it encapsulates a lot more than people think. It can bring on the effect of panic attacks. It can make you essentially stay in your house and live like a hermit, which is something I love to do. But I think it's something that people should recognize. And, I think that ties in a lot with depression because the society that we live in now has made depression something cool without recognizing the negative effect that this can have, especially on the younger generation, because people mistake feelings of sadness or aspects of distress, woe, worry, or anything like that with depression, without recognizing that yes, while you might feel sad, and it's common to feel sad, especially after certain events that might have made you feel that way, depression is a mental disorder. And having experienced depression for years in my life, it's being able to understand that mental health is more than just the emotions. It also has an effect on the physical side of you. Growing up and always having a high work ethic has made me feel like sometimes when my body physically has no energy or my head is racing, I would categorize it as laziness or I need to get up. I'm just feeling like I don't want to do something. And I think the main thing to understand is when you do have any mental health issue, it's more than just emotion. It's the physical aspects and the physical effect that it has on your body. And I think one thing that I always found it hard to recognize is when I'm feeling like this, I would never want to give in. I would never want to say, let me have a rest or let me just chill for now and I'll come back to my work later. It would always be, no, this isn't necessarily real. And whether or not that was put on me by aspects of culture, I would always second guess myself. And one thing I would say is that can be very damaging because the more you do that, the more you suppress the feelings or emotions and the worse the physical characteristics might be. So you might be, I don't know, feeling a bit tired and like you have no energy to do anything. And then instead of giving yourself some time to rejuvenate, you go about doing your tasks and then you end up fainting at some point or finding that later on something more important can't be done because you stressed yourself out or overworked at a time where maybe you should have given yourself more time to rest. And it's really important to distinguish and understand how you're feeling because I don't think you can ever get better if you don't understand how you feel, especially now, which I will talk more later on in the video. After going through some therapy, I was told something very important, and it's that you need to understand that your mental health doesn't define you. And in always looking for this escape and to try and rid yourself of this thing, I guess it brings your feelings of resentment towards yourself deeper, and it makes it worse. And I was told by my therapist to just nurture yourself. Stop looking at your anxiety, for example, as something that you want to get rid of, and nurture it and understand it so that you can figure out how to work with it, And I think one thing that I had mentioned in the previous video, and I said at the beginning, was being high functioning, what it means to be high functioning. My education or work ethic doesn't always mirror my mental health or my mental health disorder. And I think sometimes that has made people second guess whether I have a right to even feel anything, because I've usually gotten through education somehow fine without, I guess, failing, and I guess failure is subjective, but I'm literally stating failure in the sense of I didn't get a grade, right? I've never experienced that, and I've always managed to excel at education and maintain a high work ethic and not have my mental health necessarily affect some of my grades. Now, I think I've always felt like, because I've been able to high function, that I am not as anxious as other people or as depressed as others may be. And I think if anyone out there might be high functioning, just know that is not the case. You just happen to be able to somehow get through without your mental health being so overbearing that you can't do anything. And I think while that has changed a lot more recently, as I will get into further on in the video, I think when it comes to being high functioning, I think the most important thing is still to give yourself that love and care and nurture yourself, because when you don't do that, again, you go ahead to spiral into the I'm feeling like this, why is nothing going right, why is everything going wrong? The main thing is to be truthful to yourself, because I found that the more and more I suppressed what I was going through, the worse and worse it became. And that was more so highlighted in my final year in university, which is now, where I felt like I was less and less able to function. And I personally think it's because of how long I went without asking for help or being open about anything. And this really ties into the next thing I'm about to say, which is asking for help is not a showcase of any weakness, but it really is a show of strength. I mean, I go to Newcastle University, that's where I am now, and I study law. And law is a very tough subject, and it's not necessarily that the subject itself is hard to understand or conceptualize. It's the amount of reading that you have to do and the amount you have to engage with the subject. And while I do enjoy it, I found that it was harder and harder for me to get through the year without having to go to the university for help. And I always felt burdensome, I always felt like, what am I doing? No one cares. But one thing you have to remember is, especially when it's at university and, if you happen to be at an institution where they have a system in place, whether it's student well-being or anything like that, they're there for a reason. People become therapists for a reason. People become psychiatrists for a reason. People do certain things for a reason. And I think I found that hard to understand. And one thing I would say has probably made me able to get through the year is the support systems that were in place. And I was lucky enough to be offered free therapy sessions because that was something that came with the university, and I really think that had a large impact on how I felt. And I would have never thought of being open with anyone about how I feel, but it has enabled me to actually get through. And I think one thing that I found helpful was something my personal tutor told me. You have to understand that if you have any kind of learning disability or mental health illness, you're not on the same level as everyone else. And essentially, you find yourself either being a little bit here, or you just plummet and you're over here. And what the support systems do is just get you here, you know, whether that's you getting an extension or whether that's you filling in some kind of personal extenuating circumstances form or anything. What that aims to do is just make you balanced and not have you falling down here, and just giving you the means to get through your university. I've realised that not every university has the means that my university does. That's why I really wanted to do some videos on how I dealt with my mental health before seeking any advice, whether that be through medication, therapy, anything, and how that external factors have helped me get through my degree. And it might not have been as clear because I'm really just speaking on my experience without too much of a plan. But if anyone that is watching this has anything they want to ask or anything that they would want to request for me to do, then I am all ears. I'm open to any suggestion. Obviously, mental health is very important to me, and I think it's something that we should all talk about because it's common and it's not something to be embarrassed about, and we're all in this together. The next video is tomorrow, so see you then, and thank you so much for watching, and yeah.